and welcome to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for listening. You just heard a study by Fernando Sor, Opus 31, number 18. So today I would like to give a short overview of my work with this little guitar. You might have seen on my channel or on Facebook I'm basically a lute player. But over the years, I had been missing being in touch with the guitar, and fortunately, I found this wonderful little copy of a romantic guitar. It's built by Gary Southwell after a model, Madame Sidney Breton, by René Lacote, one of the most renowned luthiers of the Romantic era, a Frenchman who was born, like many other colleagues, in Mirecourt, and then he moved to Paris and built his workshop, and he delivered guitars to the most famous guitar players of the time, Aguado, Sor, Carulli. So, I'm planning to start a little series on the early romantic guitar, a kind of approach from a standpoint of a lute player, because many lute players find it hard to get back to the guitar or combine the guitar and the lute, because when you have a classical training with a guitar, you're used to play with long fingernails. And I don't want to be dogmatic, but I think it's quite hard to get a decent poetic sound on the lute, double strings with fingernails. So when I decided to become a lute player, I cut my fingernails and I totally committed to the lute. But as I said, I always missed the guitar. So my personal story is the story of many guitar players. I started out as a kid with the guitar, and then I moved on to Stuttgart, Germany, and Milan Conservatory, and I studied with classical guitar with Mario Sica and Ruggero Chiesa. And during my years in Milan and Italy, I discovered early music because I had to play lots of Renaissance music on the guitar, and I desperately wanted to get hold of a lute and become a lutenist. So I moved on to Basel, and I studied at the Basel Schola Cantorum Basiliensis with Hopkins and Smith, Eugen Dombois and Peter Croton. And then later I found this wonderful instrument, and I got into some research on these early romantic guitars, and what I wanted to find is a solution to my problem. I wanted to play both instruments, so I investigated by reading the method, Il metodo della chitarra, by Fernando Sor, and I found many interesting things about him, and I came to the conclusion that Sor basically borrowed many technical aspects from the lute world. For instance, he would rest his pinky finger on the soundboard and he would play with fingertips. So I found that very useful and helpful reading the method. And so now I'm playing Renaissance music and Baroque music on the lute, and these wonderful gems, Fernando Sor on the guitar. And I'm especially fond, as I said, of Fernando Sor. I think these little studies are real gems, and I wouldn't even call them etude studies. I think they are real Lieder ohne Worte, songs without words, or little moments musicaux, things that have a little bit of Schubert style or even Beethoven elements. So it's a wonderful world to address these little studies, and I'm planning a series on these source studies, and I will later on in the upcoming videos talk about sound production on these instruments, the fingertip technique, the interpretation of these works, and the way these guitars were built. And you're welcome to leave comments if you have questions on these instruments and suggestions. So please go ahead. And I'm not only a performer, I'm also an online teacher. And during the pandemic years, I built up a little international group of really fine guitar and lute students. I speak 5 languages, so language barrier is not a problem. So please get in touch with me if you'd like to work with me, and so that we could talk about your guitar playing or lute playing, or maybe you're considering buying a lute or buying a really romantic guitar and doing this shift to this fingertip technique. So yeah, this is to be continued, this little series, and thanks so much for listening to me and following me, and have a great day and have a happy new year 2023. Goodbye.